Welcome to our first Edpuzzle video. This is going to be a series of videos about graphing using Excel, and that's going to be largely what you're going to see on these videos for our first unit, is emphasizing just that use of technology because it's not something we can work on in class. So if you watch the video, and even if you want to pause and follow along working in Excel, I think that those are both great options to make sure that you understand how to use Excel. I'm working in the web version for these videos because I wanted to make sure that if you are only able to access the web version through the LRSD site, that you would still be able to do everything that I'm doing in the video. That being said, if you have the app on your desktop, use that. It is far more dynamic and you'll be able to do way more in terms of creating misleading graphs. So if you are just able to use the Office 365 version, you want to log in to LRSD and you'll start on this page in your My Site. You'll want to click on Office 365 up at the front, and that will take you to this window. And you'll notice I can see some of my files here. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see that there's an option for Excel. Now, there should also be an option for you to install Office, and there's this button here. If you click on that, you can install Office on your device, depending on the device that you have. I really do recommend using the full app version instead of the web version if you are able to, because it's kind of like using Instagram on your phone versus on a computer. On your phone, you can do everything. You can post stories, you can post pictures, you can you can comment, everything that Instagram is capable of. But on computers, you're kind of restricted. I'm not even sure if you can post anything through your computer or if you're just able to view and like things, because it's just so restricted in the web version. And so any Microsoft Office app works very much the same. Web version's very restricted, but the full version on your desktop is way better. But for this, I'm going to work in the web version just in case you are. I find that the app on your phone works kind of similarly to the web version. So if you're working on your phone, if that's the only option you have, then that'll be available to you. So you'll go to Excel and you'll want to choose a new blank workbook unless you've already been working on your assignment. But I'm guessing you haven't in this case. So for me, I've got a file started. So I'm going to open that up. And here we go. So I'm going to go to my bar graph data, which is this. So I looked at my phone and kind of depressingly saw how much time I spend on my phone for different days of the week. So I've got all of this data. This is categorical data. Again, so we love categorical data for bar graphs because then we can compare really easily and we'll see any sort of big differences between our data. If we're looking at a lot of things that are really close together, remember that bar graphs wouldn't be your best choice. But in this case, things can spread out pretty nicely. So I've got my heading typed out here, time on phone per day in hours. I've got my days of the week, and I've got my times here. So once I have all that information, what I can do is I select my data. Now I don't need to select my table heading. I'm going to add that in after. So I've got my data selected, and you can go to recommended charts and it populates these recommendations with different kind of headings for you. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be very picky about which graph I use. I'm going to use a column graph because this is a sequential set of data, Sunday through Saturday. And I'm going to click on that and let it populate. So what it did was it filled in Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It identified all my values. It just calls it Series 1. So there is some tweaking that I can do to these titles. And if I go up to the top here and I click on chart, I can actually make these changes. So you've got lots of ability to manipulate things. So I might delete my legend because I'm only graphing one type of data here. There's only one bar. I can add in horizontal and vertical axes titles, which I do want both of them. So I'm going to call the bottom one days of the week. This was from February 2nd to Our 1st to 7th. And then I can also add my vertical title. And I want, in my personal opinion, I like the rotated title. So I'll show you what that looks like. This is time in hours. See, so it shows the writing going upwards like this, tilted sideways. I need a chart title. So centered and overlay. And I can edit it here. Time on my phone per day in hours. So this is my beautiful, good graph. Now, if I wanted to try and make this a misleading graph, it's pretty difficult using Excel. Things that you can do though is you can go into your axes and you can choose to not show them at all, and then all of a sudden we don't know what day of the week it is. You could go back and instead of having them in sequential order, maybe I selected them, and if I go into data, what I can do is I can choose to do it ascending. And so now all of a sudden, if you look on the left, now my days are alphabetical. And that changed the way my graph looked. All of a sudden, my values have shifted around. So I can do little things like that. If I wanted to make it look a little bit more level, then I could go back into by clicking on my chart, going back up here into my axes. Maybe I add my days back down here, but then my vertical one, maybe I choose in thousands. That gives me kind of a weird one. It's not giving me any kind of manipulation option. So it looks like in the web version, you're kind of stuck with a limited set of options. I'm going to go back to default. But what you can do actually in the full version of Excel is if you double click on your data or you right click on it, you can change your axes values. And so you can say that set the maximum at like 100, and then it'll squish it all down and kind of play with that to make it so that you can mess around with how your bars look a little bit. So those are different ways that you can create manipulated graph in Excel. It's not as dynamic as doing it by hand, and there are other programs that allow you to mess around and make more misleading graphs, but Excel is a pretty common one that people use for normal graphing, so I wanted to make sure that we kind of got comfortable with using that. So you have a little mini assignment that you are supposed to do in Excel. So now that you've seen this, you can watch this video over and over again, come back and kind of click through to make sure you understand how to do it, and then complete your assignment using Excel.